Okay, hi everybody. We're back. Come on in if you're coming in. If you're not, don't, etc. Come on in. I think we'll just close this. Come on in if you would like. Otherwise, I don't know. Right. We're going to now. I think we're going to do a lot of a bit of riff here now on the sort of Web3 and the economy and its impact. You got a little bit of a preview earlier. We did actually raise the issue of Trump coin and Melania coin, and even though those kinds of things are very much of the cultural zeitgeist, as we like to say in England, there are wider implications. And what I think is, as a journalist, having tried to unpack this space for a few years, I've always looked for the real world consequences, the real world impact, not just, pump and dump and, meme coins and yada, 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 but the real world impact on economy. So let us have a little discussion about this. I've got possibly the best looking panel in Davos. Let's, not including myself. So let's hear from Agna? Yes. Agna from WeChain, Bill from Polkadot, Melody from Spartan, and Yip from Jedi, or is it the right way to say it? Jedi. And so round of applause for our panel, ladies and gentlemen. These people have dragged themselves out of bed after staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning in the Hotel Europe. I'm joking. Well, that's what I did anyway. So let's just we'll do a little bit of an intro round, starting with you, Agna. Just give us 30 seconds what you're working on right now, what kinds of things you're interested in at the moment.
Sure. How does it work? Hello. Yes. It's working. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Agna Linge, and I work in fintech and crypto ecosystem. I've been in this area for over 8 years right now. Worked with centralized exchanges, built DeFi projects, and right now I'm working for WeFi. WeFi is a neobank, and we also operate a WeChain, which helps to operate financial infrastructure. Our goal is to make financial services accessible to everybody. What we're propagating is actual economic freedom. We understand that a lot of people never had access to financial services, loans, or anything, even bank accounts. And with WeFi, this is what we're trying to revolutionize. We're trying to give access to banking and to banking services to people.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Laboon, Director of Education and Governance Initiatives at Web3 Foundation. I come from an academic background before this, teaching at the University of Pittsburgh. So I work on Polkadot, especially on increasing decentralization, on ensuring that everybody can contribute, and helping to make sure that Polkadot in a very secure manner supports the over 50 blockchains that are running on it currently.
Great. Yep.
Hello, wonderful souls here in Davos. My name is Yip. I'm the CEO and founder of Jedi. Our vision and mission is to make peace more profitable than war. And we think the first step is to accelerate interdisciplinary and international collaboration. That's what we do here in Davos.
Fantastic. Are you replacing United Nations or... no, I'm just kidding.
The network states.
Network states. Oh, let's talk about that's a good topic. Okay, go ahead, Melody.
Hi, my name is Melody. I started my career in traditional finance, investment banking. I got bitten by the crypto bug in 2015, and we launched Spartan Group in 2017, and just focused on investing in Web3 and building and advising Web3 projects. I'm very much inspired by how capital has been formed by crypto, and how that unlocks accessibility to not only founders, startups, projects, and also individual investors. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. We wanted to talk about the economy of the future. Now, let's think about what are let's think about how the economy works at the moment. People go to work, they get paid a salary maybe. There is obviously things like gig economy work. It's in fiat currency most of the time, vast majority of the time. We've had some interesting experiments, such as in Venezuela, I think, where people got Bitcoin. Sorry, El Salvador, I apologize, wrong country. But yeah, so that's happened. I think the El Salvador experiment was that people got an app on their phone and they got given a little bit of cryptocurrency, and then basically they sold the cryptocurrency and just used the financial, app on their phone for in a fintech manner, like a banking app. So that was interesting. And I think one of the problems that we've had over the last sort of 50 years, I suppose, is that we started off, we were told that if we worked hard, we would be able to pay for a house and pay for the kids, and then we'd be able to retire, and then the kids take over and everyone's happy. Now, nobody can pay for anything, nobody can afford anything, nobody can buy a house. No wonder digital nomadism has taken off, because nobody can actually afford to have any kind of like property, virtually, unless you got lucky and bought some Bitcoin in 2010 or something crazy. So that's going on. So how is Web3 and blockchain going to improve the world from here on? Just a small question. Should we go with you, Melody, first?
Yeah. Great.
Just solve all our problems.
Solving all our problems.
Yeah.
Well, I think Web3 allow you to put money where your mouth is. Like, it does give you an opportunity to own a piece of something, right? You can't really, if you're a young person, you start working, you have a bit of capital. If you have time, you do your study, you do your research, and you believe in a piece of technology, and you contribute a piece of technology. It doesn't only allow you to draw a salary, it also allow you to own a piece of a stake of a bigger protocol, that if your work contribute a bigger success of the protocol, you will also get paid. It's almost like, if you back in the days, the only thing you can buy is a house, and if the house price goes up, and yes, you will make money. But today is you can own a piece of a protocol, right? And you can continue to be rewarded by your contribution. So I think that unlocks true ownership of technology from the early days.
How is this is for anyone who wants to, maybe Bill, you want to jump in. How do we get past the idea that really it's just sort of the greater fool and the Ponzi scheme criticisms of assets going up, and it's kind of like a hot potato, and everyone's playing musical chairs, and eventually
PvP.
at the
PvP, like peer-to-peer, means like we're just fighting each other
right.
with where the money goes.
Yeah, and eventually all the world's energy is used up on trying to kind of hold a couple of Bitcoin together. How do we get past that?
Yeah, I think it's actually a good segue. You had accidentally said Venezuela instead of El Salvador.
Right.
And excuse me, people forget there was this Venezuelan experiment of energy-backed crypto, and we see what El Salvador is doing. On Polkadot, we see something else, right, where there's staking rewards being sent to help pay for developers for the network. What crypto is going to allow, how it's going to do this, it's hard for anyone to predict, but what crypto allows is for all kinds of different experiments to take place, and very easily, try something new, see if that works, then see if something else works. And I don't know which is going to be the correct one, but I think that blockchain technology is what lets us try these things out and figure out what the next step is.
How much longer do we have to wait for the experiment to start working, or has it already worked? Because when was Bitcoin invented? 2009? 2008. So we've had several years now for this experiment to play out and work. Is it working now, or is it going to work better in the future?
So just for contextualization, this has been 16 years only, or 17 years since Bitcoin has been up and running. And actually, when we look at the market caps of today, when you look at the most valuable companies in the world today, like across the globe, top 10, 70% are American-based tech companies. It's the Googles, the Meta, Google, Amazon, and so on. They hold basically all the market caps. Now, when we project that maybe 10 years into the future, it will still be technology companies. Why? Because technology companies historically have driven down the costs of humans interacting with each other through technology. You think of the first internet, Web 1, that drove the cost of information to zero, or the marginal cost of information. Everyone can all of a sudden tap into the global wealth of wisdom at zero marginal cost, as long as you have internet access. Then Web 2, Amazon, the rise of Amazon, the rise of Google Cloud, the rise of the mobile phone. What did it do? It drove the cost of communication, the marginal cost of communication, down to zero. Now, like since 2005, we can talk to each other, even using Zoom, video, not only text, and we don't pay a single dime if we have internet access. So now, what is the next step?
Well, you pay with our data.
You pay on the data.
You pay with your privacy, effectively. Because Mark Zuckerberg owns my phone,
yes.
phone number now, basically.
And this is why there's a really big use case for blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies, for decentralized, coordination of economic transactions in preservation of privacy. And this is the technological backbone of the economy, which we call the Web3 economy. It would drive down the cost of economic transactions to zero. And then we have true globalization. And you will see it in the market caps. Who of you is actually really familiar with Web3 in this room? Oh, yeah? So majority, maybe hearing about Web3 for the first time. And this is the beautiful thing about Davos, the world leaders listening to economic paradigm shift.
You said something there along, I think, privacy. So I want to come back to that in a minute, later on. Especially in regards to governance and things like that. But Agna, you at is it WeChain or WeFi? Or it should work.
So WeFi
Don't switch it off.
WeFi is part of WeChain. It's two things combination. So I'd like to.
So what's your answer? You're working on economic freedom, but how are you doing that?
So I'd like to follow up what Yip actually said about internet and how you now have access to things. Yesterday I was listening to a speech by Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. He said, why cannot money move like internet? Like what we're talking about, the wealthy people, they are protected from inflation. They have the real estate, they can access loans, they can leverage, they do business, etc., etc. What we're talking about is those people who are poorer, let's call it this way, who do not have access to mortgages, as you said. They cannot purchase, they cannot even perhaps access bank accounts or whatever to purchase Bitcoin. So what they are facing is transmissions, right? They're remittances. They're sending money back to the countries where they're working. And you probably know how much does it cost to send money. It's crazy, like, I don't know, from $20 to $100 to make a single transaction. Plus, it takes how many days to send those money abroad from UK to Nigeria or whatever. So this is what we're talking about. So blockchain technology is already solving this problem by streamlining the transactions. So we know that the settlement is zero, right? The block confirmation time. And what I wanted also to follow up on your specific question, when is it going to change the world? I think it's already changing with stable coins. Look at the countries that have a high inflation rate. So people in those countries that have access or understanding about stablecoins, they want to get out of their inflationary currency and go to USDC or USDT just to protect what they have, because cash is the only thing they have on this day. And we know, so people are doing that, and businesses who are already operating, let's say in Nigeria or in Latin America or in Asian countries, to get the money out, you have to go to stablecoin, and then you do the transactions to get, because otherwise nobody's going to take your naira and transfer it to United Kingdom, United States.
But isn't, stop me if this is a stupid question, but isn't Bitcoin the only anti-inflationary currency, because there's only 21 million Bitcoins? Because, I mean, you take things like XRP and Ripple, that's all just been mined by the company, effectively, and that meme coins similarly. Dogecoin or whatever, it's all, there's no end to this. It's infinite virtually, isn't it? So it is actually all inflationary.
No, Doge is actually similar. It has a finite number of tokens.
Oh, I apologize.
They're mined,
okay,
and
so,
people just started.
But a lot of these things just don't. So
I think it depends.
Aren't they
on
part of the inflationary economy?
No, I think it depends. I think that's a very specific question on why you design tokenomics the way it is. I think Bitcoin serves a certain purpose. It's why they want to have a capped supply, and Ethereum has inflation because it is not a reserve currency. It's really built as a computation platform, and you want to have certain inflation so that there will be new distribution like coming out of the network to incentivize additional economic behavior. So it's really about how you design the tokenomics. But if you specifically talk about store of value, yes, Bitcoin has a finite number. And that's probably one of the reasons why Bitcoin is a better store of value compared to many other crypto assets.
Right. Yeah.
If I may add to that, it's like really an economy of the future. You could think of it as Bitcoin, maybe as gold in your asset portfolio. Then you have technology assets in your portfolio. And it's really I really want to stress the point, if you're new to Web3 and you leave this room, that Web3 is not cryptocurrency speculation. It's the technological backbone of the economy of the future. And we're seeing it already mirrored in the market caps. And every project, you can look like coinmarketcap.com is the place where you see like the index of the largest cryptocurrencies. And then you can see the philosophies. And the moment, at this very moment, it's like different islands. Every island has its own culture, its own philosophy, its own policy and governance. And maybe Bill can speak about it. But they decide, the people who kind of build this technology, they decide on how they are doing the incentive mechanisms, of course, together with their investors, their stakeholders, and so on. And there's a lot of competition of who has the right model of how much inflation. Should the inflation be capped? Should the inflation be deflationary? Should the community have the power to vote and change the rules? And I don't know, maybe.
But surely now I think we can also get into the subject of the network state idea and whether and how to summarize network states. It's effectively where people take over. They're kind of like a city state, almost like an Athenian city state, where people come up with their own methods for governing themselves. In the Anglo-Saxon era in England, there was a excuse me, my phone's going off. I apologise. There was a concept of Anglo-Saxon justice where you would effectively fight the other person to the death, that kind of thing. So there was all sorts of ways of doing this. The Athenians had their own ways, etc. So are we going to enter a rather experimental era where some people say we're going to create a little city over here and we'll operate it a certain way using Web3. Some people over here operate it differently. Surely there must be a perfect model for this.
I think if you don't have military power, you better not start.
Is it the golden rule, as in with the people with the guns make the rules?
If you can't defend yourself and you become really rich, and people is going to want to take over what you built. So I don't think it's realistic.
You don't think this whole network state thing is realistic?
I think they're just like realistic projects.
Right.
So I'll just be spicy and argue against it. But really quickly, something I think that you sort of touched upon here, and I think that goes into this, is saying like the specific things that blockchain might bring you, like, all right, capped inflation or different governance models. I think the big thing that all this brings you, that blockchain brings you, is that we can all agree on rules. The people that belong to this group, to this blockchain, will agree on some rules: inflationary tokenomics, this type of governance, this type of network state, etc. Okay, so now let's talk about.
But it depends on when you're talking about physical places, or it's just like a virtual kind of identity or a virtual existence, right? So I think if it's a physical location, you actually want to. I think a lot of the network state topics we had is really about acquiring a piece of land, building a city on your own. So that's the physical and the virtual connection. I think it's very difficult to
It's difficult, and I will grant you there have been several failed experiments, like Sealand, Liberland, etc. I couldn't call it a failed experiment, but it's not a lot of experiments of this nature have failed in the past. Liberland is still going strong. There's nothing against Liberland. But you also see a lot of nations. I look here in Switzerland. Liechtenstein, right? Liechtenstein is not on its own a huge military power, right? However, they have certain rules. They still live under a prince. They have developed a way to work under their own rule system in this broader system of great powers. And I think blockchain technology helps that, right? So I'm not saying that, this is going to be like the next, there's going to be 3 world powers and one of them is going to be a network state. But I do think it is something that can exist, and we've seen similar things happen in the past.
To draw it back to our theme of the economies, you could design a very small community using blockchain, and if you're in Liechtenstein, you're surrounded by the Alps, so nobody's going to come and get you. But if you max it up to the size of a country like America or Russia or Nigeria with 160 million people, we have to talk about the economies in a different way, don't we? Right? And maybe that's just an obvious thing to say. Nobody needs to answer that question.
Also, I'd like to say that military power is not the same as used to be. Now
Right.
it's information technology war. Before you send a tank, some rockets. Now people are fighting. Cybersecurity is much more important than it used to be before. So the war is being done in different tools as well.
We could have an entire panel on disinformation. We were going to talk about...
It is super important to understand this, what Agne has just said. In the cyber warfare, in traditional warfare, 1 bullet equals 1 victim. You have it's like a gun, and then you can shoot 1 time. In cyber warfare, 1 hack can affect an unlimited number of devices. And this is the scale that we're having with the threats. And now you think about network states or economies and states, nation states. How many years has the US dollar and USA been in existence? It's been 200 years, only 250 years. So what happens is we're talking about history as if it were a given, because that's what we know as of today. Germany, where I was born, has been in existence for 35 years in the way it is in existence today. And then you look at the Eastern, the Balkans, they have been in place like even less numbers. So basically what happens is we cannot assume nowadays that the world we know as of today will exist in the next 100 years or in the next 50 years. And we know that very well in the EU, where we have all these frictions with the war between Ukraine and Russia.
I'm not super excited by that future, because I think we're already fairly chaotic as a planet as it is, and things getting less stable. I think I'm not very excited by it. But doesn't this bring us to the subject? If you could just lead back so I could see Melody. We were going to talk about governance, weren't we? And so what's the state of governance in Web3 versus economy at the moment? Have we reached a point of stability, or have we reached a point of agreement about how things should operate in this world, especially where Web3 meets, for want of a better phrase, the real world economy?
I think in governance we're still in the sort of pre-Cambrian era, right? If you look at all the different blockchains, they're doing very different things. You look at Bitcoin, where there's a ossification essentially, and only soft forks, whereas Polkadot, very dynamic, lots, over 1,000 referenda, and change all the time. And I think there are benefits and drawbacks to each of these approaches. But I think we are going to see more and more on-chain governance. I think this is a huge reason for blockchain to exist, and for that to start impacting the real world more than just what's happening on blockchain.
I mean, I remember the early days, and the great hope of blockchain was this sort of more democratization of money. Melody, as an investor, do you feel that governance has become much more sort of sorted and sort of not, kind of agreed upon in the way things ought to operate, or not?
I think in reality, decentralization or decentralized governance depends on the stage. I think true leaders are very rare, and if you want things to really happen fast, leaders need to have a lot of power, like at the beginning, especially when you build something. In Web3, we have because we invest in a lot of projects, right? And some of them maybe too early try to decentralize their governance. That significantly slows down their growth. But when you have too much centralized and opaque governance, there's lack of trust in the community, especially when you are selling tokens, right? You are promising people who buy your tokens, I will be transparent, I will disclose good and bad, right? I will speak to community to decide how to move forward when things, hard things happen. So I think it's in reality, that in practice, it's a very difficult thing to do. And even you look at Ethereum now, Vitalik just came in and say, I am stepping in, I'm stepping up. I think it's because of competition, right? Ethereum is losing market share and mind share to Solana, and Solana is very centralized in terms of the thought leader in that community, and that's I think Vitalik now, what the Ethereum Foundation realized. The foundation wasn't empowered, and they're not incentivized, and there was no true leader. So I think.
But wasn't that the point?
Of.
That was the point of blockchain, that there wasn't going to be one
but that's the thing.
leader. In
reality, it's really difficult to balance. I think what we talk about the governance is it's transparency. Like decentralized governance provide you that transparency, but it doesn't replace decision making and leadership. So that's a very difficult balance.
So we get transparency on a dictator. Effectively.
Then you choose not to support, right? Yeah, in a way. Well, it's kind of like Singapore, where it's like, it's Singapore where I live. It's very much dictatorship, but benevolent and certain transparency. But people can vote and they're subject to sentiments. But
but it doesn't. If you say something controversial, you might end up in jail. No.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
So it's not really decentralized governance.
No.
Yeah, but I would say nothing in the world is perfect, but a transparent dictatorship or a transparent almost any type of governance is better than an opaque one where you don't know what's happening.
Slightly
so it is
better.
A step in the right direction. And that's what it's always going to be.
You can see how many people are in jail versus not seeing how many people are in jail.
I would say that is better if the people know.
Right.
I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm saying that is one step better, and that's what we're here to do, right? Is always make one step better, not to just say, all right, if it's not a utopia, then it's nothing.
You're right. Fair enough. Let's get into two topics quickly, then we'll switch to Q&A. The world of work and the world of banking. You're obviously you're interested in. I know you're interested in banking and people having access to economic freedom. Let's all talk about how we do that from here on in and empower people. What are your thoughts?
So I checked the panel topics in the Congress for the World Economic Forum, and I filtered all the banking and finance-related topics, and all of them saying the time is now. We have to rush. We have to look at fintechs. We have to innovate. So the incumbent banks, of course, they're not serving the needs already. They're built on a very old infrastructure. So they either have to innovate, of course, they have to build something new, or they have to purchase the fintechs and integrate the services. This is very clear for everybody because there is an evolution, and we do not have the people sitting in front of the teller, giving you cash in the bank. So blockchain technology and artificial intelligence and everything else, all the data that we are consuming, this has to be utilized in order to create a new financial infrastructure and financial rails. So I am 100% convinced that the banking is changing. The banks will not be banks as we used to know them before. Potentially corporations will be offering banking services. In Europe, we have open banking, where a company can actually also offer you financial services. I heard that even Uber has the EMI license, electronic money institution license, in order to service the drivers. So you can see that this financial industry is totally transforming with what we have with all the new technologies.
Yeah, totally. In Ireland now, the Revolut is so prevalent. People now just talk about Rev. They just say, "Can you Rev me this?" or "Can I pay? Can I Rev it?" It's become so ubiquitous. For some reason, Ireland is completely taken over Ireland, almost completely. And of course, on Revolut, you can have your traditional banking, and you can also have cryptocurrencies as well. But there's a certain centralization there to some extent. And then we talked about, hopefully I get it right, El Salvador, with the banking app, which held crypto, but then people just started using it for banking anyway. Are the big banks? Let's zoom out a bit. Once the big traditional banks get involved in Web3, is it game over for the Web3 players because people are so used to, dealing with Barclays Bank or HSBC or whatever? Any thoughts?
I don't think so.
As someone who used to work at Goldman Sachs?
Yeah, well, Goldman has been experimenting a lot of kind of trade finance related, but it's different story. But I do think a stablecoin is something that the big banks are very excited about. I think they can design their own way of adding service and deciding how they charge their customers. Right, in the end, I think what we see is going to be the foundational products, because the data and the ledger are on the same ledger and the same data, and all whether you are a traditional bank, whether you are a fintech, whether you are a decentralized application, it's all about user experience. Whether you can provide the best user experience and make that player win, and because of the ability to move around your assets a lot more frictionlessly between all these front-end applications, from one bank to another DeFi application to another wallet, it's really made the best product win. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Bill?
So I think we've seen banks operate under lots of different economic mechanisms, right? The gold standard and fiat standard and everything. And I think they also could operate under a Bitcoin standard, continuing to operate, but giving two benefits. One is that there's transparency, that you can see, a bank can prove that it has so much backing behind it, and also just there's always the opportunity, right, for people to not use the bank. There's an alternative to them. And I think that competition, this is something that was very difficult to do in the past. This competition also, I think, will help to keep banks on their toes, but I'm sure they're going to evolve just like blockchain is going to evolve. It's more options for people and more truth for the world.
Right. Now, in the final 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, I'd like to throw in another curveball of AI. And one of the panel earlier, we talked about Web3 and gaming, and we just about got to the point where, because AI had taken all the real world jobs, we now had jobs inside games. What a beautiful utopia it was. And of course now with AI progressing at this point, and Sam Altman was literally just making an announcement a couple of days ago about how he's got some AI agents now, which are PhD level agents. I'll have to tell my son, who's doing a PhD, or planning to do a PhD, next year, that he might be out of a job. I'm kidding. But obviously, these things get so intelligent, so useful. Where does that fit into our future economy that we're building here? On this panel, obviously, and we'll go off into create our network state at any minute now. Where does AI fit into this sort of puzzle? Does it take over aspects of work? Does it do work for us? Can I create something which other people think, wow, Mike, you've created a brilliant AI agent. I want to hire it, and then it goes off and does work and pays me while I sit back and get a suntan. Let's go down the line, starting with you.
Sure.
What do you think?
I remember always they say there's a human error, and the centralized point of failure, so we blame humans now. Now we can blame AI, right? So somebody programmed it in a wrong way. I think AI is definitely beneficial. What's in terms of finance and banking for fraud detection, for artificial intelligence powered KYC. Why do we have a person to check all the documentations? Actually, I have a personal story. I failed the KYC on one exchange because they say it's a post address, not my full address, but there was a full address written. Somebody just couldn't read it, like it's actually full address, so it's very annoying for me, and I had to go through trouble. So I hope that AI will automate some of these minor mistakes that are happening. And and I think it's for banking and financial services, really for automation, for fraud detection, very much important. Yeah.
Yes, it's exponentially useful. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to joke. I like to joke that blockchain is all about truth and AI is all about lying. So it's a bit of a joke, right? But AI, that's what it's good at, right? Is making stuff up, making new things. But it often hallucinates because it just wants to say something. And so I see blockchain and Web3 technology as such a great mixer or counterbalance to that, where AI generated information can point to something, something that's made up or potentially hallucinated, but it would always have to point at something that is provable and verifiable on blockchain. So I see this as going to be a much more integrated path going forward of AI and blockchain.
Right. Yeah. You're very interested in the AI world, aren't you? So, yeah.
I think AI cannot work without the blockchain and the crypto. And I just think, Mike, it will not be your agent doing the work for you, but it will be your agent representing you, or your squad of agents representing you, each agent dealing with the banking, with Agne, then dealing with the governance, voting for you on your behalf, dealing with me, dealing with her. And it will be our agents dealing with each other, transacting economically with each other, with automated payments that follow the programs or the rules or the guides that you have given into these systems. So you kind of taught your agent to do things for you, like you would teach your executive assistants right now, just that you have 1,000 or 100,000 agents doing the work for you.
I love that scene in Her, the movie Her, where right at the end of the movie, sorry if you haven't seen it, I'm about to ruin it for you, where he says, but are you talking to anybody else? He's fallen in love with the AI. And she says, yes. And he says, how many? And she says, 8,316. So it's a fascinating, beautiful vision of the future. Melody, have you got any thoughts on this?
Sure. Yeah. The first time I think 3 years ago, I got very anxious about AI because I feel like from the perspective of a crypto or investor who always think about decentralization, you feel like this thing is the most centralized technology one can invent. Amass all the power it can find, amass all the data in the world. It try to replace, or not replace, but it try to consume as much as possible and try to do as much as it can. So it's I had my moments of being very anxious. I still am. I feel very I'm not sure how to tell my kids what they should be doing, because I don't know whether they're gonna have jobs that they can do that AI cannot do. I have this moment when I think I had a conversation with Claude, and the answers are so good. I was like, you know what? I should just work for him. And I was like, I should just do whatever he tells me because it makes a lot of sense, and he must, it looks much better than all of these business plans and white papers and the technical solutions, features, and I think it seems so thoughtful, better than most of the experts, right, in the world, because most of the experts are only expert in one area, but Claude knows everything. So I had this moment. I was like, oh my gosh, if AI is gonna become sentient, what are they going to do? So I think the first thing they're going to do is to replicate themselves in tamper-proof, permissionless, and unstoppable infrastructure, which will be crypto, and which will be Web3, which will be decentralized compute. And the currency they're going to use, so the conversation I had with Claude is, if you are to invent your own currency, what would that be? So they will invent their own currency.
Right.
And they will have their own economic activities.
Go off into space and we'll never see them again.
I don't know, maybe. If they want to live with us, they will. If they don't, maybe they go explore the galaxy.
Yeah.
So I think, in a way, even though I don't know what the future is like, excitingly, I'm like, oh, we should build all that infrastructure for AI to have a way to exist on their own without our interruption or disruption. It could result in something horrible, but I do think it's coming.
Right.
So I think the best infrastructure, especially in Web3 or decentralized infrastructure, they need to think about how they serve AI, how the AI will pick them instead of another infrastructure to use it more, right?
Right.
So why do we choose Bitcoin as a better store of value over gold? And why do AI choose one token over another as their infrastructure provider, right? You have to think about how do you be a better token for AI.
Wowee, my mind's exploding right now with the potential for what that might mean. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to draw this section to a close. We're going to have some questions now, but please give it up for Agni from WeChain and WeFi, Bill from Polkadot, Melody from Spartan Group, and Yip from Jedi, and me, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. Do we have any questions? Any questions? Q&A. I'm going to be I'll be like the TV show host and wander around. Go. When you ask a question, say your name, your company, and a question. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm Anke Su. I'm working for Chain for Travel. I'm the Chief Growth Officer, and we are building a layer 1 blockchain for the travel industry, which is governed by the travel companies themselves. Among them, Lufthansa, TUI, you know them, a lot of smaller sized companies as well. And we are going back to the start of the discussion. We are already working on, we have use case live, a blockchain OTA, and yes, and others. And my question is, do you see blockchains evolving for specific industries? Because there's the overall blockchain for the luxury industry as well, of course, finance, etc.
Great question. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that blockchains for specific industries are actually quite useful, and we see like a lot of these collaborations. I always say blockchains are good if you may not trust any one individual entity, one individual travel company that would have a chance to cheat, but you can trust and prove in the aggregate that they will come together. And so a lot of these vertical specific blockchains, we see quite a few on Polkadot that are focused on, for instance, on AI and Polkadot SDK based systems as well. Supply chain, all these things where Internet of Things, where there are several companies that want to interact, and not on a broader monolithic blockchain where there's lots of chances for other things to go wrong, right? The network gets clogged up, or other things happening. They may even not want to be transparent outside of their own ecosystem, right? Or between their own little group. So I think having a blockchain that's specific to that is very useful, and we'll probably see more vertical specific blockchains going forward.
Really good point. Any other questions or points? Go.
Hello, my name is Latko Stjepanovic. I'm the CEO of Lusa. We're building virtual I/O for games, like for a platform. My question is, isn't the fragmentation, like everyone launching chains and second layers, third layers, let's say Ethereum has a problem, Arbitrum stops, Optimism stops. Why don't use spin up chains and use Bitcoin as a security layer? Is that an option? There's a possibility to put into a Bitcoin block a ZK proof and give Bitcoin actually a brain to not only be a store of value. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of research being done to trying to make a Bitcoin compatible with all these other smart, like a computation layer, right? But it's not easy to do, and I think there will be some research trying to launch. I think BitVM is one of them. I think there's a lot of research being done by Starknet Foundation, and so in reality, the tech is not really there yet. Well, I haven't seen it working.
You guys could take this offline. Last one from Bill.
Yeah, no, so I think we can argue back and forth about the tech, but let's, I would say there are a lot of disadvantages to building on Bitcoin specifically, and this is something we at Polkadot have been looking at for a long time, right? So there's lots of again over 50 blockchains running on Polkadot, but there are certain standards of how they can interact with each other. This is something that other chains haven't done, but I think it's something that as you were looking to build, it doesn't matter if it's whatever it's on, right? All of these different L2s or different blockchains should have some way, some standard in order to interoperate. Otherwise, you get this fragmentation.
Great. I think we're going to call it there, and I feel free to talk to our panelists any minute now. But anyway, thanks so much, and please join us and have a coffee. Thanks so much.